The world is out of balance. The world is corrupt. To help you understand the world we live in, the SALVANT report has garnered information from several sources using their most recent report to shed light on multiple events happening around the world. The US has lost its moral authority. The European democracies have lost also their moral authority. And even the church has lost its moral authority. And that's the reason why we are witnessing and experiencing a lack of leadership. The Middle East has been on fire for a long time. And the US president said Israel and Hamas have signed off on the first phase of his 20-point Gaza plan in a major step forward towards a permanent end of the 2 years of war. The first phase of the US brokered ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas is a tremendous achievement, securing the release of hostages held by Hamas for over 2 years and the end to a devastating war in Gaza in a 20-point plan. We can tell you this, that however, even the 20-point plan stipulates that Hamas and other militant factions will not have any role governing Gaza, but Hamas still want to be part of whatever technocratic Palestinian body next administers Gaza. Hamas still want to be part of that. However, Hamas didn't carry out the October 7 attacks in order to wind up governing Gaza, but with the goal of being able to operate more like Hezbollah does in Lebanon, to be both part of and a part from the Palestinian political structure by participating in the political system but not running it, all while maintaining an independent fighting force unrestrained by the burden of governance. When it comes to that 20-point Gaza peace plan, a nearly identical version of what become the current ceasefire deal has been on the table for months. But it came together in early October because all sides face intense pressure in the wake of the Israeli strike on Hamas senior leadership in Doha. This is not the first time Hamas has its back to the wall and had to engage in a strategic reassessment, finding a way to navigate international pressure while preserving its commitment to using violence to undermine its Palestinian rivals and ultimately destroy Israel. 31 years ago, Hamas found itself in a difficult position in the wake of the Oslo Accords, which began the long process between Israel and the Palestinian Liberation Organization. And at that time, 3 weeks after the White House signing ceremony of this Oslo Accords in 1993, 17 people from across North America, described by the FBI as senior leaders of Hamas, convened at the Philadelphia airport hotel to strategize a way forward for the group. Recognizing that conditions were not ripe for openly supporting militancy, participants decided to be careful not to affiliate themselves with Hamas to avoid bad publicity and law enforcement attention. And despite this attempt at concealment, the Hamas leaders at the meeting expressly committed themselves to supporting the holy struggle, jihad. But this required weapons which participants worried would be in short supply with the prospect of peace on the horizon and a Palestinian population eager to enjoy the benefits of self-governance. We were in 1993. The new Palestinian Authority was also committed to security cooperation with its Israeli counterparts, which Hamas feared will complicate their ability to secure weapons. And running low on weapons and funds as well, Hamas leaders likely worried that it could lose further political standing in Gaza. As we said, this is not the first time Hamas has had its back to the wall. We're going to review some of the American president's 20-point Gaza plan that was signed in Egypt. And to our understanding, he had a lot of mistakes that were made. Signing a peace, or it wasn't a peace plan, it's a peace plan, but it was a ceasefire. Because first, it was signed in Egypt. And those of you who are Christian, knowing that the Israeli was at one point in Egypt and were saved by the Almighty. So their old master signing document for them. Israel was not present. They said Benjamin Netanyahu, the PM, was first not invited, then invited, accept to be there, and then decline. It was a mess. And no Hamas representative was there. And on this program, we have talked about the silence of the Arab world. 22 countries and they never said a word during 2 years where the world is witnessing live a genocide. The plan, 20-point peace plan, we can talk about some of them because we won't have time to go over all of the 20 plans. Now, let's say number 9. It said Gaza will be governed under the temporary transitional governance of a technocratic, apolitical a Palestinian committee responsible for delivering the day-to-day running of public services and municipalities for the people in Gaza. What they call the Board of Peace will be headed and shared by the President of the United States with other members and head of state to be announced, including former Prime Minister Tony Blair. That's one of the points. Will the Palestinians accept this? Even though on this committee, they said this committee will be made up also of qualified Palestinian and international experts with oversight and supervision by a new international transitional body, the one that they call the Board of Peace, will be chair, and headed by the President of the United States of America. The other points that we will focus on is number 13, where he said Hamas and other factions agree to not have any role in the governments of Gaza directly or indirectly or in any form. All military, terror, and offensive infrastructures, including tunnels and weapon production facilities, will be destroyed and not rebuilt. That's the reason the title of our program today said, Hamas is not done fighting. And at the beginning, we told you exactly what it is on number 13, where we told you that Hamas didn't carry out the October 7 massacre, or attacks if you want, in order to wind up governing Gaza. But it was with the goal of being able to operate more like Hezbollah does in Lebanon. So number 13 on that 20-point Gaza plan is exactly what Hamas leadership was looking for. To be both part of and a part from the Palestinian political structure by participating in the political system but not running it, all while maintaining an independent fighting force unrestrained by the burden of governance. Or in these 20 points, they said at the beginning that Gaza will be de-radicalized, terror-free zone, and that doesn't pose a threat to his neighbor. And that Hamas has approved the plan and not going to be part of the governing body. Hamas leadership, that's exactly what they wanted. To be just like Hezbollah in Lebanon. And you think that in this argument, they said they're going to go and return all their weapons. So, now, when we get to the number 13 on that 20-point Gaza plan, let's go to the 16. Number 16 tells us, he said, Israel will not occupy or annex Gaza. As the ISF establishes control and stability, when we talk about ISF, is the International Stabilization Force, and that will be deployed in Gaza according to point 15. And the ISF, it will train and provide support to vetted Palestinian police forces in Gaza. And the ISF will even consult with Jordan and Egypt, who have extensive experience in this field. Therefore, Israel will not occupy or annex Gaza, which is in contradiction with Benjamin Netanyahu's plan or the extremists in his government. The white wing in his government, and that's the reason why you have seen the pictures that Gaza is obliterating. 98% of the buildings are gone, destroyed. They are now wobbles. And why? And the reason that exactly that we want to annex it, we want to occupy it, we want to put you out. That's what we were talking about, ethnic cleansing. That's what a lot of people are talking about, genocide. Israel will not occupy or annex Gaza. Point 16. And the Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, will withdraw based on standards, milestones, and time frames linked to demilitarization that will be agreed upon between the IDF, ISF, the guarantors, and the United States of America, with the objective of a secure Gaza that no longer poses a threat to Israel, Egypt, or its citizens. And practically, according to the point 16 of the 20-point Gaza plan, practically the IDF, we're talking about the Israel Defense Forces, will progressively hand over the Gaza territory it occupies to the ISF, which that's the International Stabilization Force, according to an agreement that they will make with the transitional authority until they are withdrawn completely from Gaza, save for a security perimeter presence that will remain until Gaza is properly secure from any resurgent terror threat. There was going to be a perimeter presence of the IDF to be on the lookout that really Gaza is properly secure for any resurgent terror threat. Now, before it was approved and agreed upon on October the 3rd by Hamas, Hamas said that it will return all 48 remaining hostages being held in Gaza in exchange for Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jail and Gaza detainees, and to the idea of handing over the governance of Gaza to Palestinian technocrats. we have seen that on television, that this is being done. It is being done. That, but not all of it. The first phase, we have seen the hostages that were still alive being returned, being released, but we don't know yet, as we are taping and talking to you, if all the remaining dead bodies were returned to Israel. And we got to tell you this. Benjamin Netanyahu is on the lookout for any little thing to start the war again, because without war, he's not alive, he's going to lose power, and according to a lot of reports, he is going to jail because of corruption. And in 1993, when we signed, let's see exactly, in 1993, when we signed the Oslo Accords, and he said in 1996, Benjamin Netanyahu said he's going to do everything humanly possible to keep this from happening, for us to have the two-state solution. Or Israel is not going to be at peace. There's not going to be peace in the Middle East unless we start by this two-state solution. Israel is not going to occupy or annex Gaza, or really. And we have seen 8 or 9 military operations since 2002 by Israel as it relates to attacks from Hamas. Now, what would happen to, and that was interesting to have this in the 20-point Gaza plan, that on number 18, under 18, he said, an interfaith dialogue process will be established based on the values of tolerance and peaceful coexistence to try and change mindsets and narratives of Palestinians and Israelis by emphasizing the benefits that can be derived from peace. We know, as it relates to what they're feeding the young mind of the Palestinian, is just to hate Israel. And the son of the Hamas founder said that according to the books, Israel and Hamas can do a ceasefire up to 15 years. There will be never peace with Israel. What's going to happen? And we think that, as we said, as our title indicates, that Hamas is not done fighting, because these guys are very dangerous. The American president is already anticipating everlasting peace throughout the region. But Israeli authorities have a different vision in mind, recalling that the Hamas leader and October 7 mastermind, Yahya Sinwar, was among the 1,027 prisoners Israel released in 2011 in exchange for an Israeli soldier. Israeli leaders fear that the current exchange of hostages for prisoners may lead to the release of the next Sinwar. 2011, he was a prisoner. During an exchange, they let him go, and he became the leader, and he was responsible. He was the mastermind of the October 7 massacre. So in the mind of the Israeli, and they are right, that in all the prisoners that are there, they are letting go. Don't you think that they're going to have another Sinwar as the leader of the Hamas? And the Israeli, they worry Hamas will regroup under a new generation of leaders who, like Sinwar, become further radicalized, but also more strategically astute in Israel's prison. The American president called in his plan for the disarmament of Hamas and other militant groups and the demilitarization of Gaza under the supervision of independent monitors, but not all stakeholders are on the same page. Will we be able to take away the weapons from Hamas? It remains unclear whether American, Egyptian, and Qatari mediators accept this Hamas variation from the American president plan. The Hamas leader, Musa Abu Mazouk, rejected the idea of disarmament, stating that the group will not disarm and insisting that resistance is a legitimate right of the Palestinian people. For Israel part, Foreign Minister Gideon Saar has already conditioned full withdrawal of Israeli forces from the Gaza Strip under phase 2 of the ceasefire deal on addressing Hamas weapons and reiterating that Hamas must disarm. Now come the hard part. Anticipating the U.S. designation of Hamas as a terrorist organization, which took place in 1995, one participant at the 1993 Philadelphia meeting told his colleagues, "I swear by Allah that war is a deception." He said it's necessary to camouflage, pretend that you are living while you are walking that way. Deceive your enemies. Deceive your enemies. And the Americanized Hamas supporters compared the idea to a basketball player's head fake. He makes a player believe that he's doing this while he does something else. And that is, ladies and gentlemen, that is the best way to understand Hamas' acceptance of the ceasefire. While it slowly and carefully rearms in Gaza, the group will continue to plot attacks from the West Bank, Lebanon, and potentially against target abroad as well, several Hamas plots were recently thwarted in Europe. And even if mediators successfully navigate all 20 points of the Gaza peace plan, the region will be far from the American president's vision of everlasting peace. There will be spoilers on all sides, of course, but none will be as effective as Hamas and Iran and its proxies. An impressive collection of world leaders met in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. That's the name of the city, Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, hours after Israeli hostages were released. The leaders of Egypt, Qatar, Turkey, and the United States issued a communique expressing their shared determination to dismantle extremism and radicalization in all its forms. But that commitment will mean little if some meat is not quickly put on the bones of the skeletal 20-point plan. And the key to undermining Hamas' ability to regroup is to quickly put other security and governance structures in place to replace those run by Hamas. Without these additional securities and governance structures, Gaza will be left with what now exists on the ground, namely Hamas-run security forces and government ministries. But it doesn't have to be this way. The government that helped forge the ceasefire can also disarm and disempower Hamas. Hamas is not done fighting. How are we going